All right. Hi, everyone. Let's get started with week 5 watercolor mastery recap. I feel like I'm about to forget some words there. I'm enjoying actually looking at your comments in the chat. Just the conversation about hobbies is always a fun one to have because I think a lot of times you get into watercolor because you're interested in a lot of different things. And so we have a very diverse and varied group here. Another thing that I noticed recently was, and I think I mentioned this last week, was when I got together with other watercolor artists, all of us were talking about how much we love our surroundings. We love nature. We love getting out and seeing the beauty of the world around us. And watercolor and painting and art give you that insight, those new eyes to look at the world in a different way. And I love when an artist will take something that might be a little mundane, boring to the casual viewer, or even ugly, and find beauty in it and then show it to the rest of us. It's just amazing. And as we explore watercolor, we can also be assured that the things that we've learned in the other pursuits that we have actually come with us into our painting journey. That means that when you are painting nature, if you're a gardener, spend a lot of time outdoors, you'll have better observation of the different things that you're painting because you spend so much time working closely with them. And I think if you're a musician, you know about the benefits of practice, repetition, and sometimes doing the monotonous stuff to strengthen your skills. I think there's so many different things that we can learn from our hobbies. And so that's pretty cool to see how they work together. Back when I was scrapbooking most of the time when my kids were littler, I learned that my composition skills, my ability to balance different elements to make a pleasing arrangement was coming into play through scrapbooking and making my paintings better. So that's a really cool thing. Yeah, so I'm going to try to keep an eye on your comments. So if I'm seeming distracted, that's why. I'm just kind of peeking in to make sure there aren't questions that need to be answered or anything like that. Trying to keep an eye on everything there. Robin is away today. She is a brave soul who's a part of a number of Christmas markets and art events in her community in Indiana. And that's just such a busy time at Christmas when you're involved in those events. And I'm really hoping she makes some really good contacts today, networking with people who are interested in her art. And yeah, if that's something you've ever thought about doing, maybe just leave a note in the discussion or drop me an email. I have a contact here in my area actually who's got really good advice for art marketing, and I'd love to share it with you if that's something you'd love to see. Okay, let's see here. We have spent the week, and I'm not sure how you feel about it, but we've spent the week playing and trying some new techniques. And we had 3 different areas for you to explore and get creative once again. And that might have felt a little bit crazy after all our focused learning, but I hope that what you've seen from that, that your learning opportunities don't disappear because you weren't studying serious artistic principles. There's a place for those to learn them and to think about them, and then you carry that knowledge with you and learn how to apply it. And we really need room to apply what we're learning and over time. We need space and time to apply what we've learned. And I think the best way to do it is through exploration and experimentation and playful learning, just to have fun that way. So I felt like this week with our techniques that we were fooling around with, if it seemed like if a student was going to struggle with a lesson, it was the gouache exercise. I've had good luck with this technique, but every time that I've used it, it's felt like luck. It doesn't feel like I'm really applying skill. It's like there's so much that's unknown until you rinse that gouache off that you just have to take the risk. And you just don't know if it will work until you're done. A few things that I noticed that might help you if you want to continue to kind of wrestle with this technique, if you felt like the benefit of when it does turn out is worth those risks, to keep in mind that the ink that you put on over the gouache, as it's being used as a mask, it will wash off if it doesn't have a place to stick to the paper. So you want your gouache to be thick enough to protect most of the paper, but thin enough, at least in some areas, to let some of that ink seep through. And then washing your paper, I loved seeing you washing your paper and your paintings, and not just in the gouache technique, but I noticed there were students who were doing it to paintings they weren't super happy with, and then taking that painting and doing something new to it. And I loved seeing that happen, because that's a sign of that experimentation working, using a technique or just a piece of a technique and saying, how can I make my paintings better using this? And I love that taking your painting to the tub or the sink gives you new possibilities. It means you're not ever willing to say, I'm absolutely finished here, this isn't working, and I give up. There's a real willingness to problem solve your way out of the painting. Washing your painting, if you're really feeling like it's not turning out, taking it and giving it a wash, maybe a light brush with a soft toothbrush or something to get most of the color off. It gives you this whole new surface to work with. If you're using Arches paper, it can handle that kind of abuse, especially if you're using the 300-pound, the thicker weight. And then whatever residue of color is left behind, if you have staining colors that have stained the paper, you get this really velvety kind of, I don't know, it just makes me think of fabric, really faded. And so you have this beautiful faded foundation to start with and to build from. So it gives a very different look than that clear, luminous, transparent watercolor on brand new white paper. And that different texture can actually be really appealing as you play with it. I love anytime you're willing to give everything you have to your painting. That's powerful. That is your time to really invest and commit, and just make that paper teach you everything that it can. And that's my feeling, is if I'm going to fail a painting, I'm going to fail as hard as possible. Keep learning and keep putting paint on it until I've really learned everything I can. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to talk about week 6 in just a moment. Yeah, and a little bit, and yeah, Discus is acting a little goofy today. I couldn't get it to work right around lunchtime here, and then just about 15 minutes ago, I was able to load the page. So it's just a little bit iffy this morning with service access issues. Okay, Les, you've asked, Angela, can you be too loose in painting? Is there a point to stop? I think there's no to anything in art, I think. Some people would say, I think, how do I put this? Such a great question. I have to think about my answer. When you're painting, there are really absolutely no rules. You have to do what's right for you. Whether or not a painting succeeds is the decision of the artist. You can put that painting in a competition and it may be accepted or rejected. You can put that same painting in another competition and the jurors will make a completely different choice. There's going to be varying opinions on whether your art is good or not. And when you have an intention for your painting, that's really, I think really that, to me, that's the measure of whether a painting succeeds or not, is, did you get what you wanted out of it? And so if we make the joy of the process our standard of success, then we don't even have to think about the outcome. We just get to know if we really found joy in the process, then that painting has succeeded. Whether or not we want to show it to anybody is a second part of the story. I've seen some really amazing, very, very minimalistic paintings. In fact, I just saw a painting by Georgia O'Keeffe, and unfortunately, I don't know the name of it. If anyone can think of it, it's like a sunrise. It's like a big round dot and then like 3 lines, curving lines around the sun. It's so simple, and it's a watercolor, and very simple and evocative. And, some might say she was too loose in that painting. Like, we want to see stuff, but, that's really up to the artist. And Georgia O'Keeffe was satisfied in what she created there. So that's where we have to go, is what are you trying to say, and how much detail do you need to put in to get there? And as my skill as an artist has grown, how much detail goes into the painting has very little to do with whether that painting is successful or not. My early paintings were very detailed, very controlled, and now I've spent a lot less time touching my brush to the paper. And it's just changed as I've grown in skill, and that's because I'm better able to think about what I really want to say rather than just showing off what I'm able to do technically. Okay, we're gonna I'm gonna quickly look at your comments here. And Jerry says, I've watched a lot of paintings this week. Jerry, I'm going to just kind of reference one of my comments on your painting in the discussion, because I feel like there was something key there, and I'm not sure I'm going to be very good at articulating it. But Jerry was showing one of her paintings that she'd done this week, and you weren't super happy with it. And when I looked at the painting, I felt like I didn't want to give you technical advice on what to do so much as just encourage you. It felt like to me like there was this part of you that just wasn't comfortable with that style or with, what you were trying to do there. And I think we have to listen to those instincts. I think sometimes we fight our instincts in our artwork far too much. And when you're in that place of, I'm doing this assignment and I have to do it this way. And sometimes that's my fault. As your instructor, I need to give you broad enough instructions so that you can kind of do things in your way. But when you let that heart thing guide you, that inner, what do I really want to do here? And you have to let it out. That is so powerful, and it shows in your artwork. And so, the reverse is also true. That hesitation and fear, and uncomfortableness, discomfort, or I don't know if discomfort's the right word, but just those feelings that we have, they are evident in our paintings. And so it's really good to really try to focus on what your mindset is and listen to that heart and try to get it out there. I don't feel like I articulated that really well. That's because these are thoughts that are always brewing in my head, and I'm still figuring out the best way to explain them. But I really encourage you, heart-led painting is so worth it. It's what gives paintings their authenticity so that we can simplify and paint with this freedom to let go of what the photo says and do our own thing and see people respond to that result. It's the difference between, actually, that's a really good example. If I had a script, a speech that I'd written, and I have notes here, so I kind of do. And if I spent the entire time reading word to word, whatever, and never looked up, made eye contact, put any intonation of expression into my voice, how would you respond to that? Probably you'd stop listening. You guys all want to see my early work. That's a fun thought, actually. I'm not sure how long it would take me to track it down today. I don't think it's not on this computer, so I'm off the hook today. But I'll try to do that for week 6 recap. How does that sound? Okay, where was I at? Okay, so if I was reading word by word, I probably wouldn't get lost in my conversation, but I'd lose your interest, and because it wouldn't feel natural, it wouldn't feel real. We don't want to have a relationship with someone who's reading from a script. If we go out for dinner with a friend, we don't have notes that we go by, that we read through. We'd lose all of that relationship. And I think our paintings are like that too. If we're focused on the technical stuff, the notes, then we lose that authenticity, that conversation. So I think that you're in this place of learning where it's really hard to let go of those notes, and that is okay. That's where you're struggling with finding your looseness and finding your heart-led artist. And I think looseness is the wrong term, because heart-led painting is going to guide you. It might guide you into more detail than what it would for me. You want to find that happy place, the thing that connects most deeply with you. And in order to do that, you have to listen to yourself. And I have a little excerpt here. I actually, this is, if my students who were in Ireland with me will already know about this. Louise, you'll remember this. We talked about a book I was reading called The Coaching Habit. It was a book on teaching and working with people. And there was a section that talked, the author is Michael Bungay Stanier, and I'll have this in the session notes for you if you want to look up the book. I really liked what he had to say about he was talking about managing people. So if you're a manager, you want to make sure that as a manager, you are providing a safe place for the people you're coaching, for your team to be able to do their work and do it well. And I immediately started thinking, because I was teaching in Ireland at the time, I immediately started thinking about how, as an artist, we're not managing people, but we want to make we're trying to work together with heart and head and hands. And how do we do that and have all the parts working together the way they're supposed to? And so I found this in the book, and I thought it was really good. He has an acronym, TERA. And the number one was the one that really kind of stuck with me. And the brain is asking, are you with me or are you against me? If it believes you're on its side, it increases the Terra quotient, the ability to learn and to work, to feel safe, to do its job. If you're seen as the opposition, then the Terra quotient goes down. Think about it as your fight or flight response. When we are in a place where we are afraid, our brain starts to shut down. We can't think the way we would if we were relaxed and feeling safe. We have that two options, fight or flight, and neither of those are opening you up to creativity. And we have that, we're in that situation as artists when we're trying to let our heart out to paint. The heart is asking, is it safe to come out to be creative here? And if you're a self-critical artist, an artist who is really feeling doubts about your worth and your abilities, it's really hard for your heart to feel safe to create. And so that's where we try to be playful and learn to trick our brains into saying, this doesn't really matter. You're safe. You can come out and play. E is for expectation. This is another way to make your brain feel safe. The brain is figuring out, do I know the future or don't I? If what's going to happen next is clear, the situation feels safe. If not, it feels dangerous. We want to feel this expectation that whatever the outcome of the painting, I'm just here to have fun. It's not, this painting is going to form the decision as to whether or not I should be an artist. There's a lot at stake here. And if this painting fails, I fall into this depression and I don't want to paint again for the next 3 weeks. That's going to really increase the inability of your body to be creative. Now, R is for rank, and it's been a little while since I read this book, so I want to see if I can explain this properly. It's a relative thing, and it depends not on your formal title, but on how power is being played out in the moment. Are you more important or less important than I am, is the question the brain is asking. And if you've diminished my status, the situation feels less secure. So do you really believe that your heart-led painting is important, is as important or more important than your technical ability? Are you letting those things, those inner, that beautiful inner you to come out and play, and letting it know that it's important and you need it? And then A is for autonomy. Do I get a say or don't I? The brain is gauging the degree of autonomy you have in any situation. Do you believe you have a choice, that you can paint creatively and make creative choices as you're painting? If you believe you don't have a choice and you're just stuck with copying that photo, it's not going to feel safe to come out and be creative. So those are the things we want to look for in creating a safe space in our studio to really be creative and paint from the heart. Hopefully that helps you as you think about letting your heart lead. And then in week 6, I'm going to show you how I do that in my studio. I love Carol's comment here. It's so true about feeling safe. I try to start out by saying, I wonder what would happen if. I don't care about the results. I can cover it with gesso and start over. So yeah, I can take it to the bathtub and just scrub it down. And And Sandra says, I never know who is going to show up, that creative me or that one that's not feeling safe and is a little bit tied up. And so, yeah, we want to look for strategies to help us loosen up. And in week 6, I want to bring you into my studio and show you how I am willing to stick it out to be here as long as necessary in my painting process to get that heart-led painting out. It doesn't happen the first time. And so I restart and refresh and start over. And we've talked about repetition. I'm going to show you some of that. You're going to look over my shoulder as I paint here in the studio. I'm excited with that. To do that with you. We spend our lives looking to be better in managing our time. Time is the one thing we can't manufacture more of, really, but we can try to be more efficient with it and get to our destinations faster. And we tend to equate success with these metrics. How quickly can we do something? How quickly can we master something? How efficient can we be to get something done? That's why very often, raise your hand or leave a comment if anybody's ever said this to you. How long did it take you to paint that? I hate that question. I usually say, oh, 2 hours plus 20 years, because I couldn't have painted it without all the knowledge that I brought to that painting when I came into the studio. I've found so much more joy in making peace with the beauty of a rambling creative journey. It's very non-linear. It doesn't have a timeline. I have to just let it kind of I don't know, stumble into place, kind of like a toddler walking through the grocery store. Not a straight line. And there aren't any shortcuts. We have good instruction that can help you to know where to focus your technical development and understand artistic principles. And we've worked hard on that over the last 5 weeks. But when I walk into my studio with the goal of creating authentic and heart-led art, I need to let go of any urgency that might hinder my heart from feeling free to express itself. We want that safe place when we come into the studio, and we do whatever we can to make ourselves, help ourselves feel safe and nurtured here so we can paint more freely. Okay. Yeah, I think as soon as Tana says, yes, as soon as someone asks that question about how long it took to paint something, you're thinking, are they thinking you need to spend more time at it, or are they thinking, wow? And I think sometimes we just think we need to price everything by the hour because that's just a standard. Oh, Mary Beth, I like your comment. I've sewn since the age of 11 and quilted for 30 years. I have a bunch of quilters in my family too. I get the emotional sensitivity part of color with working with fabric. I'm very clear on what colors I like and don't like. So you have this confidence when you go to choose your fabrics that you'll be able to, choose colors that play together nicely and that create a pleasing outcome. And so knowing that will come with watercolor. And I really think that's where we can bring our other hobbies to bear, knowing and seeing how time and experience give us confidence so that we can improvise and do our own thing. Allison says, I often feel like watercolor is almost like a performance art, like a song. You can play it in 3 minutes, but it took much longer to compose and practice. Yeah, Lila, I like that. I meant when I paint with my heart, it looks like Walt Disney. I like that idea. Sometimes our art does remind us of different, of other influences or things that we've seen, and that should bring us joy. We have full permission. My husband's sawing down in the shop, unfortunately. We have full permission to just love that inner part of you. And I think we're often raised to always look for that next level. We just need to be better, do better. And there's never any just feeling good about where you're at. I want to encourage you, feel good about where you're at. We can totally think about, we're talking a little bit about toddlers in the chat here. We can totally think about children and the joy and pleasure they find in just filling that little piece of paper up with scrawls of crayon marks or paint. And they're so proud of it. And we can't figure out what it is. There's no skill there, but they're just delighted in what they're able to achieve and do. And that's because of the joy of the process. And they enjoy the process, and thus the result makes them happy as well. And we have permission to love what we do and be proud of it. And that doesn't mean it doesn't come with the occasional self-doubt. It's totally, totally true. Okay. I want to switch my camera over, and but first I'm going to show you some student work. So just bear with me while I switch to screen share. Oh, it's not behaving for me today. How come? For some reason, it doesn't want to see. Okay, we're going to have to do this in a silly way because okay, because it doesn't like me. So just be patient. I'll get there. Nope, that didn't work. My screen sharing has decided to, oh, there it is. It's on my, okay, there we go. Got it. Okay, present to everyone. This is Allison's painting. Allison, I'm glad you're here. This is such a beautiful painting. I just thought it was so expressive. And one thing I really liked about it is the way the colors were handled. I'm going to be sharing paintings today from students, ones that show that willingness to be a little bit groundbreaking and to experiment and to let go and loosen up a little bit. So that was my rationale for the paintings I chose today. I love the colors that you chose here. Predominantly cool. We've got the blues and the greens, and then that cool neutral, and then the placement of that warm rust color is just spot on. Really nice. Then we have, Beatrice. Beatrice, by the way, every other week I draw a name of someone to win a little prize gift from me. And this week your name was chosen. So congratulations. I will send you an email. You win a portable painter palette. And if you already have one of those, I will send you my 2019 calendar instead. And if you already have one of those, well, we will just have to talk about something else I can send you. So congratulations. I think I might draw one more winner next week because it doesn't feel right to end week 6 without one more giveaway. So Beatrice, I just thought this was really fun abstract. We have the stencil lifting technique shown here. We've got big, bold strokes, and we've got some beautiful metallics here. And it was just a lot of fun to see. I like that overall large mass, then with the more interesting smaller shapes inside. And then we have Evelyn, another stencil lifting painting. And what I liked here, Evelyn, was beautiful color harmonies. We've got violet and kind of an orangey yellow, which give us complementary colors, really beautiful. And then the lovely vines lifted out. I believe you said you cut those leaves yourself for your stencil. And you can easily do that either using cardstock, which of course won't last forever, or using some plastic. So page protectors might work. Overhead transparency sheets. You can buy rolls of acetate, lots of different things that you can use to cut. And another student said they used a wood burning tool to cut through the plastic of their, I think it was a page binder divider or something. And I like that idea for creating a nice clean cut. Moving on, this was Hillary's. Hillary, I just really like the colors that you chose here. They're wonderfully muted with a lot of warmth in the sky. That was just really pretty. Love the strong texture of the paper. For a smaller painting, you always see the paper texture so much more. Keep that in mind when you're painting a smaller painting, and you can use that texture to your advantage to create beauty in your painting. Just a lovely sky there. Okay, now, Jean, yeah, this beautiful photo, I saw it first when Jean shared her project, and I thought it was such a lovely, wild, intricate photo, and I admit I was a little doubtful of your ability to paint it, out of anybody's ability to paint it, because there's so much going on that it's really easy to fall into overwhelm on the details. But Jean was wise. She, I'm not sure if it's Jean or Jeannie, Jeanne. I'm really not good with names. Oh, I promised I would never say I was not good with names. I just don't know how to pronounce your name. It's important to me to remember names. So one thing I thought was really great about this was that you took the time to do your research, the value studies and some color studies, different little smaller things to help you really get to the heart of what this photo was all about. And then, and hopefully it'll scroll up next, and, Dropbox, there we go. I just was actually astounded by how beautifully this was interpreted. Not overwhelming with detail, but we have that movement, the shafts of light, and just a lovely placement of dark values from the bottom up through in kind of a C shape. I don't know if you can see that, curving from the lower right side, then off up to the left, and then around the top. And then the color harmony here is absolutely beautiful as well. So this was just absolutely lovely. And I'm just so proud of it. I'm proud of you. Joy, I like this one too, because we've talked a lot about trying to simplify our shapes. And we see a tree, trees are especially bad for this. We see a tree and we start to think of every individual leaf and branch. And so when we simplify and create a large mass and then we use, color, a little bit of shape and value to create texture within that large mass, I think it's usually much more effective than trying to paint every individual leaf or branch. So here we have that large mass of the upper part of the tree, beautiful, intricate colors in there, just enough white space to kind of give that feeling of sky peeking through. Works really well. Chris, I had to share yours because look at it. This was just beautiful. This painting has a little bit of gouache in it. The gouache bled around the edges of the flowers in just a beautiful way. We've got rich, rich dark colors that make the flowers just illuminated. And then that one lower right flower is glazed over with a bit of the blue and green, and that just helps it go into the background. And that's a good technique for creating those depths in the painting. I should also mention that I'm teaching hydrangeas in my Friday night painting club lesson. So at 3 o'clock tomorrow, that's Mountain Time, you can check out that lesson. And I will send out an email to remind everybody. Note to self. And Layla, I had to share this one because it's so beautiful. And again, I'm not sure if it's Layla or Lila. Here we've been communicating and emailing, and I feel so silly when I don't have people's names pronounced correctly. This painting is just absolutely a wonderful development. Whoops, I messed up there. Trying to get it to fill the screen. Beautiful placement of values. You were commenting, here I finally painted a landscape, and yet you didn't sacrifice your own personal style, which I so enjoy. And there's a lot of beauty in this painting and a real feeling of depth as we follow that path right to the back of the painting. We really feel like we're going into the painting, and I just think that's wonderful. I think that might be, oh no, we're not quite to the last one. Les, I had to share yours because when I saw your original painting, you used gouache and a little bit of acrylic paint rather than ink. I think you just had the acrylic paint. And so it gave you some different textures. And I really didn't know where you were headed with the next step. And so when I saw how you'd created a scene out of this, that you'd use those large masses of that greenish yellow to create depth and distance, I just think that worked out really well. And with using acrylic paint, you lose some of the transparency that you would ordinarily have with watercolor. But I just think it's really cool how we still very much can see the scene before us. And even that really dark line at the top of the painting, which is our sky, clouds, kind of everything, all of these shapes that you've placed are symbolic of the landscape that you're representing. And it works actually really well. And so I loved seeing your problem solving kind of come together here. There's my notes. You'll be able to download those. Michelle, this one was just astounding as well. Yupo painting, using the Yupo to paint A very specifically shaped object can be a real challenge. Using the Yupo to do that and keep the freshness especially. And I thought you did such a beautiful job painting this lovely kitty. Really quite special. So thank you for sharing that with us. Look at the texture in that kitty, in the top of his head. It's just beautiful. I love it. And oh yeah, another great one, Sandra. I'm so proud of you all. I wish I could share everybody's work. Sandra, this reminded me of Bobby Berger's work. She's from British Columbia here near Vancouver. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her, but she does these massively big canvases with this kind of swirly floral feeling, very similar to what's happening in this painting, which works so beautifully. It just has this lovely painterly feel. I had we're going to talk about preserving Yupo in just a second. Tanis, I love this too. You took the forest autumn scene from, I think, week 3 and painted it here in week 5. And I love the texture that was created in those little green areas. I love the colors that you used and the way that this forced you to simplify even further from the original reference photo, which I think is just cool. And then we're done. Okay. So we're going to switch the camera over. We'll just rest here on Beatrice's for a moment while I move the camera. I want to show you some books. So I want to show you some books that will help you if you fell in love with painting with mixed media, adding mixed media techniques into your watercolor paintings. You might feel it looks really crooked. You might enjoy some of these books. And some of them I may have mentioned previously. There we go. Setting this up so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so some of these you might recognize. They look backwards on my screen, but maybe they won't be for you. I'll read you the titles as it anyhow. Anne Blockley's Watercolor Workshop. This is Anne Blockley's newest book. Both of her books that I have, I can't remember the title of the other one, but both of them are really great for thinking about, look at that, wild mixed media. She uses gouache. She presses things into her paint to create texture, beautiful things. Really love this. Really love her book. And the techniques that she shows here can be just mind-blowing and world-opening. So if you want to do some mixed media stuff, Anne Blockley's a great guide for you to continue to explore that further. There are links to all of these books in the recap notes, which you can find in the class, in the week 5 recap in our course curriculum. Watercolor Without Boundaries by Carlin Holman. One of my local artists that I taught here. She started out as a beginner in my class, and then she fell in love with Carlin Holman's work and her way of combining sketching with watercolor, which is something really beautiful about Carlin's work. So it's new ways to have fun with watercolor. Here she's using almost a collage style, and she's using some stamping. And she talks a lot about design, which I enjoy thinking about all the time, and using color and different mixed media techniques. Then we have Shirley Trevina. For some reason, it seems to me that a lot of great watercolor groundbreaking artists come out of the UK. So good on you. Here in North America, we seem to be a little more traditional a lot of the time. So Shirley Trevina, again, amazing artwork. She abstracts her scenes, flattens out. I love that sketch, actually. She'll take an arrangement of still life, and she'll almost flatten it. You don't have that 3D feel, and it creates beautiful, I don't know, it just creates a beautiful composition. And, well, there's one. And she has a little bit of drawing in here, a little bit of kind of stamping or rubbing over top, and some, I think, chalk over here, just lots of different cool mixed media techniques. This is Abstract Nature by Waltrud Nauritil, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong since that's what I seem to be doing today. And beautiful, vibrant colors. Some of these are painted on canvas. Mostly, I think these are acrylic painting techniques, but I like her style and her, and I think we can learn a lot just by seeing how she uses these techniques for acrylic painting and then adapting them for mixed media and watercolor. And then we have Soraya French's Contemporary Landscapes in Mixed Media. And I think I actually pronounced Soraya right because I have a student here in my class on Tuesday nights who corrected me when I pronounced it wrong last week. And again, beautiful colors. I opened this straight to this page last week as well. Look at the color power in the colors that she chose here. And that was using pastels and some paint, I believe. So different painting techniques, using gels and acrylic mediums, using stamps and stencils, using collage, lots of different techniques. Again, there's so much we can do, and we've only scratched the surface. So if you really found it inspiring, I encourage you just to go for it. Yeah, and I see lots of people commenting on their favorite books from that selection there. I'm not really sure what I have to show you today. We've just done so many cool things this week. And so I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I've been thinking about and wanting to paint as a prep for getting you into my studio for next week. So what I was thinking about was on my Instagram, I posted a picture of the full moon last week, and our dog barked all night. And then I got up to take my son to volleyball, and he played 3 games on a broken toe. And because he kicked the bus seat on his way to school the other day. And I took this picture of the moon as I was getting ready to take him to volleyball. So I wanted to paint that moon, and I'm not sure I'm doing it right, but we're just going to give it a try. I'm painting that with Naples yellow. And the question is, should I have painted it with Naples yellow or should I have left it white? So we have 2 pieces of paper here, so I can mess up and then fix it in the second one. And if you want to see someone who painted a beautiful moon recently, well, no, that just ran all over the place. You can check out Andy Evanson on Facebook. And Andy Evanson is a really gifted watercolor artist. And I love the colors he chooses in his paintings. Absolutely beautiful. So this is lavender from Daniel Smith and that Naples yellow. And I'm just trying to get my moon under control here. I don't mind it glowing out into the sky a little bit. I feel like my light is too bright and you're not getting, is that better? Does that make it easier to see? It's just, it's really gray day today, and so the lighting is not good in my studio. This is Wisteria from Daniel Smith. We're going to put some of that in. And we're going to try to keep from going too dark because we want that moon to have that nice glow to it. And let's go down again to the lavender and let it flow. I left a couple little white gaps because I wanted to try to keep that moon from bleeding too much. And I think it's working. Back to the wisteria just a little bit. And it's not flowing the way I'd really like. I'm going to try to add a little bit of water. That can sometimes make trails down the painting. Painting a sky like this is a really good way to play with and work with your ability to create a nice gradated wash. I have a dark blue color in my palette. I'm going to put some of that on. And I think this was mixed from Carbazole Violet and Phthalo Turquoise, which make a really nice dark blue. And I don't mind having some texture showing there. We're going to let it show. Yeah, we're going to let that texture stay, I think. Now, as this sits for a moment, we're just going to pause and reflect and breathe. I have a little bit of texture up here, which I'm not sure. I'm just trying to get a little closer for you. So a little bit of texture up here, a little bit of pure wisteria there, but I want to paint my trees here in a moment. And so that all of those little things will vanish when I camouflage them in with my tree branches in front. And tree branches can cover a multitude of mistakes. So that's something to keep in mind. I should possibly, now I know this is what you would do. Some of you might see this mark here, which is quite strong and wisteria. It's pure wisteria. It's quite saturated in that one spot. I know there's some of you who would take a brush and try to smooth that out. Out of uncertainty, you want a perfectly smooth wash, and as soon as you have that mark, you start worrying about it. Some of you might try to take and smooth out that mark up there and worry about that. And I'm actually going to do that right now. Let's say we have that strong dark mark in wisteria. And let's try to smooth it out. So I get my brush a little bit damp, and I try to move that color. And then I have now a puddle of extra dampness in that spot, so it's going to start to want to create a watermark. So then I try to lift that watermark, and now I have a paler spot here. And so now it's still uneven. It's just pale and uneven instead of, wisteria colored and uneven. So I didn't actually fix anything, although I did change it. And that's what uncertainty will do for us. It will force us to fuss over things that really don't matter very much. That little dark mark or that lighter splotch here, changing up the moisture content of the paper isn't a great way to solve anything. So you really have to be aware of the timing of your fussing. If you're going to fuss, you better do it while things are really juicy so that you don't, if you want things to stay nice and smooth. I would much rather take my brush and camouflage those areas rather than trying to erase things that are happening. So we're going to do that kind of camouflaging planning right now. And we're going to play with that dark blue mixture in my palette and the neutral tint, add some of that in as well. Been really enjoying painting with neutral tint. I'm working on the bee paper again today, Aqua Bee, just because I like the 6 by 9 inch size. You can see now how much this is still running, and the neutral tint really tends to flow. So we're going to get a lot of, actually this brush is a little bit too big. You're going to get a lot of fluidity here. I'm probably in too much of a hurry, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyhow. One thing I wanted to mention too was, as you were painting this week, using the gouache technique means that we do wash our paper. And as you saw, when you wash your paper, you lose some of your color. And I really like this technique for that opportunity that it shows you to make changes even after you think it's too late. You can almost start over, especially if you're painting on good paper. And I think it teaches us to fear overworking a little bit less. Because when you fear overworking, I don't want to fuss because I'm going to overwork it. There's an element of stress that comes in there. And so then you're stressed, and then you're painting stressed, and then you're upset because your painting doesn't look effortless and free. And you were so worried about overworking that you couldn't let yourself go and just do what the painting was telling you it wanted. And my trees aren't looking beautiful right now. I probably should have waited longer. But we're going to just keep moving anyhow. And let's see what we get. I want this web of trees, and we have different levels of moisture. So we've got some things really crisp up in this corner and down in this corner, but towards the middle, things are still quite moist. And that's why we're kind of seeing that difference between those two areas. And what I'll probably do is once this has dried much more, then I can go in again and create some crisp areas in here to kind of match the crisp areas out on the edges. And I'm going to soften some of these a little bit too. There we go. And a little bit down here. Now let's be a little bit fearless, because if we're not fearless, we're not learning much. What I do often, I was actually thinking this would be a fun demonstration for you, is when I'm feeling like a painting's kind of bland and boring, it's not exciting me, I go in with a bold stroke. And taking a big dark color and just dropping it in can bring you all kinds of rewards, but it's a pretty scary thing to do. So I'm overworking, I'm losing my moon a bit. And part of it is because I was just in a hurry and didn't wait, like I said. And some of that beauty can happen as I let this dry and then put some more crisp lines in shortly. I do want to show you something though. Let me see if I can find it. Last week, I think it was last week, I painted this little scene. I feel like I'm repeating myself for some reason. I just had used the Cobalt Violet Deep and the Aussie Red Gold or Mars Yellow. And then it just wasn't, I didn't really love it. It was putting in that neutral tint, pulling up some lines and then spritzing it with water. It was the bold stroke that made this painting turn out and gave me something interesting to play with. And I was so much more excited by it. Okay, I'm just trying to refer back to your comments, and I'm going to answer your questions here too. We're running low on time. Lou says, took me a moment to find it, but in Tom Hoffman's book, he says, if something about your painting bothers you, at least consider learning to love it. And that's actually one of my strategies for my paintings, is if something about my painting bothers me, if it feels like a mistake, sometimes the best way to unmistake it, to make it not a mistake anymore, is to do more of it somewhere else, to accentuate it. And it's really interesting and freeing to do that. Let me show you another painting here. Yeah, this one. You may have seen this one on my Facebook page today. Again, simple colors. I had used yellow, the bright rose, and the cobalt teal. It felt a little too primary and boring. I put the neutral tint in and got something that was much more impactful and interesting to me. I'm trying to see if I have a boring painting here that I could liven up for you. And I'm not really seeing anything in reach. I have this. We'll use this. So this painting isn't actually super boring, but it's very soft, very gentle. And if I was feeling kind of not excited by it, it might be time to go for that bold stroke. So it might be time to find a way to add some pops of dark color. Oh, I like that. And I'm sure every one of you watching today has some paintings that you're not in love with, and you don't really see a way to make them interesting. So take this dark color challenge, find a way to throw a dark, a bold and fierce and exciting dark into your painting. If you can use it for negative painting, that works really well. So here I'm painting around my flowers with my phthalo turquoise. And then I can let that flow here on the side. I can actually drop a little water into there, let some of that color flow and move. And I might decide that I even want to, trying to see if I have the same original colors here, go darker in my flower. That's exactly the wrong color. So I'm really showing you what not to do right now. There's some dark violet. And you really just don't know until you've tried. You can plop that color on, then maybe panic and lift a little bit of it off. A little dark in the center there, maybe a little bit here. Back to the turquoise again over in this part of the painting. And I'm very monochromatic here, using the violets and the blues. There's a part of me that wonders what it would be like if I added something brighter. But a part of me that just thinks, we'll stay a little bit safe today. We won't go too wild. But you can see that adding those darks can really add a pop of impact to your painting when you had something that was feeling a little bit too placid, maybe is the right word. Okay, I'm going to take your questions right now, and then we're going to wrap it up. Louise says, I think I should talk to myself and paint as if I'm instructing myself. Be a nice instructor, Louise. No shaming your student. But yeah, absolutely. I often feel like I am teaching myself how to paint all the time in my water. And you're the only one who can, because you're the only one who really knows what you want to say in your paintings. So it is really good to just kind of keep reminding yourself of those things, those important things that you want to remember. Okay, neutral tint instead of indigo or Payne's gray, Tanis asks. Personally, I would buy neutral tint last. It's very, very black, at least the one I have, which is from Sennelier. And while I love that push of explosion across the page, it's too black to really use I don't really find it as a great mixing color, as a great dark. It tends to need to be mixed with something else, unless you really want to. I'm using it because I'm being kind of crazy right now. But if I were trying to keep my paintings a little more traditional feeling, I'd probably want to go with like an indigo or a Payne's gray. I'm not sure if I explained that very well. Marian, when you choose a color, do you consider if it is too staining for lifting techniques in a later stage? I try to never use phthalo turquoise to paint a sky, if that helps. There are certain colors that are very staining, and then I need to know that, because if I'm using them in a first layer wash and wanting to flow and lift color, definitely that's going to be a consideration. And that's something I have learned over the years. I think that's one reason I didn't use the phthalo colors for many years. It was because even though I didn't really know what I was doing, the staining properties of those colors made them hard to work with. So I set them aside until I was ready for them, if that makes sense. Jill says, Daniel Smith neutral tint is a dark bluish purple. So if it's a little less black, it's just something you kind of have to try out. Let's see, I'm going to go a little bit further here. Back into the comments, see what else I can find here. Any questions, just leave them for me right now. You will get week 6's lessons are open to you for Friday, so keep that in mind. Lou, regarding the Yupo, if it's hard to get in Australia, look also for like the Terra Skin paper. There's some stone stone surface papers or something that actually I thought felt very similar to Yupo. Photo paper is kind of similar, but I really wouldn't think it's a close comparison. I actually found Yupo. It's not the artist's Yupo, but it works the same way. I found Yupo at my local print shop. They will often use it for painting on, or not painting, for printing on things that that they want to keep outdoors. So they were actually using them for forestry to put tags on trees, and they would print on Yupo. So you could check at a print shop and see if they stock Yupo. Oh, right, Yupo, how do you seal it? Regarding Yupo, it doesn't dry shiny. Of course, it looks so beautiful when it's wet and shiny, and sometimes it just doesn't look as gorgeous when it's dry. You should seal your Yupo paintings. If you're framing them under glass, it's not as much of an issue. But even then, you might want to consider sealing them because the paint just doesn't sit on the paper in the same way as it does on regular cotton paper. You can spray it with a spray varnish. I have Camar varnish made by Krylon, but any spray sealant will work for you. Try to avoid the really, really shiny ones just because it doesn't look as much like watercolor, but a satin varnish is actually quite nice. Yes, and I wouldn't, we've already talked about how Yupo is quite sensitive to the oils from your fingertips. It can leave marks, and you can wipe that with a little vinegar or rubbing alcohol. Great tips from the discussion group this week. And then, yeah, just spray it. Don't try to paint varnish on. That's not going to work very well. Or don't try to rub it with even the finishing glazes or anything like that. Spray it just to seal it. And with any kind of spray fixative, there's tons of them out there made by Golden makes a bunch, and they're a really trusted, reputable brand. They make our core paints, and then you're all set. Sue asks, what causes paper to dry too fast? I tried to lift paint for trees and it was too dry. It's really hard to say without looking at your painting methods, Sue. How do I? One thing that I think lifting works best when you're working with a higher percentage of pigment to water. Sometimes, I notice this especially for beginner painters, if you're diluting your paint too much, it really is going to soak into your paper a lot faster, rather than having some pigment sitting on the surface that you can lift off. If it's drying super fast, I'm not sure what your climate is like. It's quite dry here in my climate, but it's cool, so it doesn't dry quite as fast. And so I've adapted my working method to suit my climate. And then when I travel, I have to kind of change what I do to because of the climate, or if I'm painting outdoors, the wind and sun are just going to dry things much faster. Heat causes paint and paper, or paint and water to be absorbed faster into the paper as well. So really, Sue, the best thing to do when it comes to figuring out how much water to put on the paper and how much paint is just to keep painting a lot. The more you paint, the more you'll observe how the paint and water react in your area, and you'll adapt your practice almost without noticing as you keep painting. So I hope that helps you. Should I wet the back of the paper? Oh, that's a good question. I don't usually. You're going to probably get a more wet on wet effect. Just keep experimenting. We tend to not work wet. Like, I don't do a lot of working wet on wet, but then I have to use maybe more paint and water on the brush than you ordinarily would in a more humid climate. And regarding the mini tree course, thanks for bringing that up, Tanis. Winter trees, all the lessons have been released. I hit publish on them this afternoon, so you can head in there and check out those 4 painting lessons. You're going to see a lot of similarities to some of the things that we're doing here in Watercolor Mastery, just in the working method of developing a painting from a reference photo by painting it multiple ways and multiple times. Thanks for joining me. I am actually late for taking my daughter to piano, so I'm going to wrap this up. The discussion group for week 6 opens up tomorrow, and I look forward to meeting you in there. So have a great weekend and enjoy your painting adventures. I'm so proud of all of you. I keep saying it and it hasn't stopped being true yet. So have a great weekend and bye for now.